Welcome back to your favorite sports podcast here in St. Louis, the Lunatics. I'm your host, Tyler, along with my friend and co-host, John, who is back from his leave as we are a little bit delayed on some recording. John missed our last episode, so I replaced him with the newer and better looking and improved John, who's missing out on this episode, sadly. But we'll get him back here again shortly. Believe he was hopeful to have some news to bring into the show, hopefully in the near future as well. Plus, I want his thoughts on how his predictions look like they're playing out as the Cardinals season starts. John, what are you drinking this evening?
Well, I decided to bring it back to college days, and I am currently double fisting because, I'm celebrating right now. So I have the Winter's Grind from Mother's Brewing Company in Springfield because they have our AA affiliate, as I'm sure everyone who listens to this show knows, for the Cardinals. And then to celebrate, I have some Single Barrel Reserve Knob Creek, the 120 proof, the 9-year. So, gotta celebrate.
Does it look something like this bottle?
It does look something like that bottle. I don't know if it's that exact bottle, but I think it is. I'll send you a picture of it when I go back upstairs.
Yeah, now I'm intrigued if we have the same bottle of Knob Creek at our house. It would not surprise me.
I should mention I have like several bottles because Knob Creek is my preferred bourbon. So,
Knob Creek is not one that I've bought a lot of, and it's something that I've had a couple and I've really liked them. So I'm trying to have a few more of them.
Trying to branch out.
Yeah, no, I am not drinking bourbon tonight, as you can tell.
Water,
yes.
yes.
Or drinking the beautiful Don Julio tequila on the rocks. So
the beautiful Don Julio.
Beautiful Don Julio. You cannot go wrong with Don Julio.
You cannot. But yeah, no, I'm very excited to be back. Took some time off. 3 weeks since my last appearance upon this show, which is too long, I think. So good news is I don't plan on having any more kids, so I shouldn't have to take an extended leave of absence in the future.
You don't plan on having any more kids yet?
No, I do not plan on having any more kids, period. Baby factory is shutting down. Supply lines are going to be cut off, and that's going to be that.
Supply lines being cut off is one thing. You could take some time off for, but you don't need to take time off from recording for it. So
no, correct. Yeah, I won't need to recuperate. I won't need to go on the IL for it. I won't have to rehab. I won't have to do a rehab down in Memphis.
Dude, I went back to work the day I had my supply lines cut off.
Well, there you go. So maybe I'll just do that.
No, I would advise milking for what it's worth, though. Take that extra day off.
Unfortunately, I'm using all my PTO to take care of the current kid, and I did not get my appointment booked early enough to, overlap. So we'll have to figure that out later.
If you need somebody to drive you, I will happily put in for family medical leave to take care of a family member during medical procedure. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm your kid's uncle. Like that counts. Absolutely.
Yeah. No. Again, if we're ever going to try to merge the bloodlines, we're going to have to make sure we don't have our kids calling each other aunt and uncle, because that's going to make it real weird.
Yeah, I'm going to let my daughter choose who she marries.
I'm just saying, if she refers to me as uncle or my kids refer to you as uncle, it's going to lessen our chances. I'm not saying we encourage it. I'm saying less of a chance of it happening.
We're not encouraging it. We're just saying if it happens, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
I can think of a lot worse people to be in-laws with.
That's true. That's true.
Jolner, for example,
who probably doesn't even listen to us because he's a jerk. But we're not here to talk about vasectomies on this podcast.
Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah. We're not a vasectomy podcast.
I misunderstood.
That's not surprising to anyone listening to us. But we are a sports podcast. And unfortunately, right now, everything is kind of poopy. with regards
Yeah.
to STL sports.
I'm going to say Saturday was a real shitty day for St. Louis sports.
It was a bad day. I was sad. It was
Only one
Saturday
team. We had four
Saturday.
teams going.
With a D.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You catch that
yeah.
pun?
Yeah, no, I got it. It's a Saturday.
Yeah, thank you. You
Yes.
should have laughed. If we were really friends like you introduced me as, you would have laughed at that.
You know, honestly, I was a little disappointed because I was waiting for you to crack your beer as I was doing the intro, but as my Google was taking forever to update so we could record this, I figure you probably opened it while waiting for me.
That is 100% what happened, because I didn't feel like waiting to drink, because again, I'm celebrating, and that's not what I wanted to do.
I do want to give a quick shout out to St. Louis Santos. Their jersey finally came in the mail for me, and this thing is fire and comfortable, and it looks so sharp with this collar.
I'm not gonna take that bait, but did you know that they designed this scarf?
I did.
This isn't even one of their scarves, but they designed it, so it's awesome. I should have worn one of their scarves just so that way we could have kind of matched, but fuck it.
It's all good. I love St. Louis Santos. They're great. Fun group. Well, I'm going to touch briefly. So the Battlehawks lost a close heartbreaker last week. Tomorrow is the home opener for the Battlehawks, so I'm excited to see how that plays out. I really expected to see more offense out of them, especially after the way the XFL draft panned out. We ended up with multiple, really, I think the top 3 receivers from the XFL last year during this merger ended up on our roster, and we had AJ McCarron back. So I'm intrigued to see what maybe another week after getting the maybe first game hiccups out of the way to see if the offense takes off tomorrow. More to report on in our next episode, so I don't want to take too much time because there's not a lot to talk about unless you have extra.
I mean, they lost because, a guy kicked a 64-yard field goal, right? Like,
I just expected their offense to be putting up like 20s to 30s in the point totals every week.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with
the disappointment came from.
But also, we need to call out the fact that there's going to be someone getting an NFL contract off of that game, or at least an invite to camp this summer. Because you should not, there's so many guys in the NFL who cannot make that kick, right?
Oh yeah,
that's why we lost. Good job on the Panthers. Whatever, you won't have them next year. Moving on.
Yep. Let's talk about the Blues briefly. After last night's game, I'm singing the blues for the Blues as it seems like every time it's like, hey, if we can win this game, we are right back in the thick of things after we, have a little bit of a good streak, and then we just shit the bed.
That sounds about right. Not technically eliminated. Yet
we're not mathematically eliminated.
Jesus Christ.
And for whatever it's worth, we had our most shots on goal that we've had all season last night. It wasn't for lack of effort. We had 47 shots on goal last night. Only came away with 3 goals.
That's depressing. It's Thursday. What's a sad way to say Thursday? I don't know. Still depressing. They're not. They're what, 7 points behind right now for the Kings.
Yep.
For the wild card, and
8 points now behind of the Nashville after the loss last night.
8
where
points after
we
Nashville,
had won, we'd be 4 and 5 points back of each, respectively.
Right.
And so it's just it's a tough loss, tough way to take it.
What sucks more about this is we can't just be eliminated. We're dragging this shit out. And it's just prolonging. It's like how do you rip a Band-Aid off, right? Right? You fucking yank that motherfucker, right?
Not in my household. But
really?
Yes. Well, I do. But for my kids,
because you're a man.
Well, yeah. No, after you and surgery, we ended up we have cans of this adhesive dissolving spray from all the taping we had to do from his lip and nose and with his nasal stents. And so you spray that on stuff, give it a minute, rub it around, and it just peels right off and doesn't.
Right. So Reagan sometimes gets her eczema on her neck too, and she had a sore that she had scratched on last night, so she wanted a Band-Aid for it. And it's I swear to God, it's right next to the hairline. So like I'm, very carefully placing this so it doesn't like cover any of her hair. And then today she's like, "You can't take that Band-Aid off." And I go, "Why? Why? I mean, I don't want to, but why can't I?" And she goes, "It'll hurt." And I'm like, "You should have thought of that before you demanded I put a Band-Aid on it last night."
Remind me before I come see you tomorrow, and I'll bring my spray, and you can try to remove a Band-Aid quickly.
Remind me before I see you tomorrow, and I will bring you this hat.
Yep.
Trading. I just showed Tyler a hat if you're listening and not watching. It's a cool hat. I think he'll like it. It's just his head is fat and my head is not, so it doesn't fit me.
That's why I can wear flat bills and you can't.
It's why you can wear flat bills and I can't, which really sucks because most hats for sports teams these days are flat bills.
Guess who has that really sharp maroon flat bill from City?
Indiana Vasilev has that hat. I've seen pictures of it.
I also have that hat. So.
Oh, is that what you were going with? I had no idea.
Yeah, I really didn't lay that one up there at all for you. More importantly,
I could never complete a layup anyway.
Oh shit! I need to turn that back on. I had at one point was watching the LSU or the Iowa UConn women's game before I came down, and I forgot to turn it on when I got down to the basement.
Oh yeah,
it's probably over now. That game was nuts. It was tied when I came downstairs.
Nuts. Yeah, those teams are stacked.
Paige Buckets was killing it on defense, and as she always does. Did you
see that one of the rival scouts had her pegged in like 6th grade as being a star? Like,
no, but it doesn't surprise me. She was the top recruit out of that class that had her, Angel Reese, and as everyone
cannot blank
knows,
on her name.
Clark.
You cannot blank on her name. Yeah,
she was getting there. I'm also half-assed trying to stare at my TV to make sure I can get it onto ESPN.
That's fine. You were probably going to say before
Caitlin Clark,
diverged to basketball that you are still not mathematically eliminated from our bet,
which is the most important thing.
Great. I mean, it is, but we'll both be wrong because I said that they could make the playoffs on 91 points, and that is inaccurate so far. So we are both incorrect, which sucks. But if I get beer out of it, I think I might even upgrade the whiskey. Can I upgrade the whiskey? Is that allowed? I'm asking.
You can come over to my house and do a whiskey tasting, but I'm not buying you a bottle. A good bottle of whiskey is way more than a 6-pack of beer.
I've heard that you have a hookup though. That
I have to harass that hookup to get stuff. The only things on this shelf from my hookup are the Buffalo Trace and Weller. And that's still more expensive than a 6-pack of beer.
I'll just drink my own whiskey and get you to give me beer. By the way, when we get to the Cardinals, because I missed the season preview, I was going to try to convince you to take a bet with me there. So we're going to come back to that. Anyway, does Bannister stay as head coach?
I don't think he's done enough, personally.
He hasn't impressed me enough to get fired.
I don't think he's done enough to get fired, but I don't think he's done enough to remove the interim tag. I think they offer him either some sort of assistant coaching gig or they push him back down to the minors, but he didn't show enough for another NHL team to hire him either.
No, I agree with that, but I could see the inertia keeping him, right? Because he's already there. And the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. But like, I don't know. I haven't like read into any other hot seat articles if there's any out there to even know who we would go for.
Here's my thing. What have the Blues gotten better at since he's where have the Blues improved since he's taken over? There's one area.
Power play.
Yeah, we were bound to regress back to the mean though at some point, right?
Right. Don't say that phrase. I hate that phrase. City has me like cringing every time I hear that phrase.
But either way, we should have moved back towards normalized, right? Like we were on such a far end, we should have normalized back to some sort of a regular power play at some point. So I can't even say that was him. We were still wildly inconsistent. We never knew we were getting out of our team night to night. Nothing changed. So he didn't tell me that he's ready to take on this group and get them ready and accountable. The only other thing that I can say that Bannister's done well is that he's not been shy as far as like benching his stars and then flat out saying, yeah, I pulled him because he wasn't playing. He was not playing well, so I pulled him.
Let me ask you this: 10-second yes or no. Do the Blues have more points now, or at the end of the season, whatever, since they fired Berube and have had Bannister since then, than they would have if they had just kept Berube?
I don't think so.
You think they would have had more points with Berube or the same?
No, I think it'd be the same. I think I think it was a net neutral change.
Ooh, I like that. Good phrase. Net neutral. Net neutral.
I think that we had the exact same team that we would have had if Berube was still behind the bench.
I think that's fair. I don't. It would not surprise me if they keep Bannister, if they retain him as coach. I think this is also a great example of why you don't jump to conclusions too early in a coach's tenure, right? Because that first 2 weeks to a month, we were like, hell yeah, this team is playing the way we want them to play. They are performing, they are winning games. The new coach bump. But once you get a larger sample size, they've kind of, the team is who the team is, right? I've been saying since the beginning of the season, it's not a good team. And that's not, a condemnation on any one player or anything. It's just not a great team.
I wouldn't say it's a team filled with potential. And I said that at the beginning of the season. There's a lot of potential and a lot of guys on the team. Very few of them, though, have lived up to that potential. Right. I mean, Pareko's played great. Awesome. Good for him. Robert Thomas has definitely taken that next step into being a true, I've seen him in multiple lists as one of the top 10 centers in the NHL, and I think that's amazing, and I think he's deserving of that. And I think realistically that Jake Neighbors has been playing up more towards his potential. Right. But if you told me the rest of the team has done that,
the goalkeepers
outside
are
of the
fine.
goalies,
yeah.
We knew we had goaltending.
Right. I mean, we're fourth in the NHL in save percentage, so you have to at least mention that. But you're really talking about the guys out on the ice skating.
Goalies skate too, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but they're not you know what I mean. Don't fuck with me right now.
Yeah, I was flipping you off as I said that. So for those of you who were not watching.
It's funny. Yeah. I was not watching because I had stats pulled up trying to look at.
You're such totals. A nerd.
I am such a nerd. I'm a stats nerd. I don't care.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about Snuggerud as well?
Yeah. So for everyone who's not aware, Snuggerud decided to return to Minnesota. There's been a lot of talk of, okay, well, he had a teammate who did that, then got into camp in the offseason, the NHL camp, because Snuggerud is also eligible to still come to our camp and play with the guys, and he likely will, to get that, extra training experience under his belt. But his teammate last year decided, you know what, I'm not going back to Minnesota, I'm going to stay, and it's been one of the top rookies in the league this year. Now, there's a lot of talk, will Snuggerud do that? Snuggerud's not coming out till after next season. He wants to win a Frozen Four with his hometown Gophers. He wants to do it. That's his dream, and he's going to be the captain. He's not going to become the captain of his team just to ditch him in the summer. That's not who this kid is. And honestly, I'm all about it. I think this is a great move for him. I think it's a great move for the team. The only thing that hurts is that, if they were counting on him to be a top 6 forward moving into next season, now you've got to find somebody who can fill that hole for next season. But I think it's going to be great for his development, and I think it's going to lead to a much more well-rounded player, and somebody who's, again, you only get to go to college once, and you only get to be the big man on campus once. Once you come to the NHL, you're playing with grown men, and everything. It's real life now, right? It's not saying college isn't quote unquote real life, but it's just a different world. And I think for him that's where he wants to be. And I think I'm okay with it personally. We still have his rights, I think, till 2026. So it's not like he's going to like slip out of it.
Right.
You know,
You keep the
like
rights
we're
for
going to
4
not.
years.
Yeah. So, so like I'm okay with it. I would have loved to have seen him next year, but if this is what he wants to do, I want him happy and I want him comfortable with his choice to come when he's ready to come to the NHL.
Well, think of it like this, right? He should be better when he comes to the NHL, and that opens up more time for coaching staff, for other players to develop, right? And so it's not the worst thing. Like, I'm completely comfortable with Snuggery, right? He's not a guy that I think either one of us is like, you know, he's really got to step it up to like make this team. I'm not like when he's done with college, I'm comfortable with him coming back in and seeing where he's at. And I think he's only going to be better than where he is now. And he's right now, I think he's good enough. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I hate saying I agree with you, but I do in this case.
You
like
hate when I'm
he's
right?
going to be there. I just don't like not being able to argue with you about things. Arguing with you is one of my favorite pastimes.
And we have been told that we are at our best when we are arguing. Been told by many people, actually, that this podcast is at its highest performing level when you and I disagree.
Yeah, which is why I'm angry every time you agree or I agree with you. So,
you want to get into something that will probably cause us to not agree?
Always.
Cardinals
baseball.
Do it. Let's go.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm going to tell you how you're wrong in so many ways.
Okay, start it off. Season started. We're 8 games in, 4 for 4. How are you feeling?
Better than I thought I would. Season preview, when we talked about it, right? I said a successful road trip would be coming back 3-4. We came back 3-4.
Nailed it.
So Sheldon went as far to say as 2-5, and at least making sure you get a game out of each series would have been successful.
I would have considered 3-4 successful. I would have expected 2-5.
Do you know why the only reason I was disappointed in 3-4?
Because it should have been 4-3.
Yeah, that game we absolutely blew, and just giving me nightmares and flashbacks to last season. And the whole fucking thing precipitated by our beautiful manager who's been given this extension using relievers when they didn't need to be used a couple nights earlier, so that they had already been used back-to-back nights and he didn't have them.
Did we talk about the alley extension? It's been so long since then. Did we actually talk about that?
We did.
Okay. So we don't have to rehash that. Yeah. How did you feel about Mo and Ale being booed on opening day yesterday?
Good.
I agree. Yeah.
The thing that made me even more happy about the whole thing is that, you know, you had Mo who was talking about being offended by people saying that they're not putting a winning product out. Well, then do something different.
It hasn't been a winning product.
Like, well, we're trying to put together teams that go deep into October. No, you're not. You're just trying to put together a team that can make it to October in the weakest division in ML Major Leagues right now.
And I mean, I will agree with some of their decisions, that they have made decisions based on October versus the regular season, right? You can look at the pitching staff and you can look at the farm system with relation to the pitching staff. We're very heavy on left-handers. Now, is it major league quality left-handers? Not yet. You hope that they pan out. But you can see that they have been taking steps over the last 3 years through the draft to acquire left-handed pitching to be able to compete in October. Here's the problem. The problem is we have not done an excellent job. We have done at best an okay job. And I am saying at best, even though I think it's probably worse, but I've been told that I'm out of touch with reality with my analysis of this. Thank you, Scott Davis, for that. At developing pitchers. So I'm not confident that a lot of these guys are going to pan out for us. I 100%
Jordan
agree.
Hicks. Jordan Hicks right now has a .75 ERA through 2 starts, just pitched 7 innings.
Okay, it's
went 5
been 2
innings
fucking
the game
starts.
before.
That doesn't fucking matter. Call me when he has 10.
This is my thing. When he pitched for us, he had 2 pitches, couldn't get a third. How all of a sudden,
he had a decent mix. It's just, when you're throwing 102 and your slider is actually better than that, but you can't use it because you're throwing 102. Like, it's kind of like he had a good mix of pitches. That wasn't his problem. The problem was that he was fucking telegraphing them every time he stepped up. There's a great John Boy video about it.
So, okay, then here's the next question. How could we not, again, how did the Giants potentially, he had a great spring. He's start off to a hot start. But if he goes on to have a very good season starting, I'm just highlighting your point that like our staff couldn't fix and handle that. Like we had the talent sitting in our hands and we couldn't get it out of him.
I will say, as you are prone to saying, the best ability is availability, and he was not always available, which is part of the calculus with Jordan. I mean, he was always just like right there for us. Like out of all the pitchers who have moved on, him finding success elsewhere, like that does not surprise me. I mean, I think the expectations were too high on Jack. I don't think Jack was as good as we thought he was after 2019. I think Monty is very, very good, but like it's not like we developed Monty, right? Like,
yeah. I agree. Yeah. I don't expect. I think Flaherty will be a middle of the rotation starter. People in St. Louis wanted him to be the ace because he had a really good half of a season.
Yeah, I think his top level is a number 2. Is a very high number 2. But I think most of the time he's a low 2 to a high 3 starter in a rotation. And I think the results speak for that. But when he's not been fighting any injuries, he has performed very well, but then again he's also gotten lit up. So I don't know. Moving on from Jack, I was comfortable with it. I haven't looked at his stats so far this year. I know he had one good start for the Orioles. Right? He's still with them, right?
I don't even know where he ended up signing.
He had one good start, but I can't remember if he entered free agency or not. I don't think he entered free agency yet. I'm going to look that up. Keep going.
It's fine. Either way, I'm just highlighting the point that like
Detroit now. Detroit, right? Signed with Detroit.
But I don't. We have not been able to get what we need to out of our young pitching staff, and it makes me worried about. It makes me question. Right, we've got pitchers that have been kind of at that AAA level for a while, the last couple of years that we've been talking about. Like, oh, these guys are getting close to making the jump. But why are they still just close to making the jump and not ready to make the jump yet? And I think it comes down to development, right? And I feel like we're missing when Dave Duncan was in charge of that pitching staff and what we were doing. We could fix pitchers, we could correct things, we could do the little things. Look at Weaver in that 06 World Series run, right? He was having issues with tipping pitches and a couple other things. Dave Duncan was like, I can fix that, called him over, and he helped us make that World Series push in 06. So, like, we had a head coach or a pitching coach and a pitching staff that could do that, and I haven't seen it in some years now. So, I don't know. That's just my take on it. Since Dunk's left, it's just not been the same. I'd agree and I don't see it changing. With that being said, let's look at the starting rotation. I mean, we talked about, the veterans home that is our starting rotation, but we have one young guy that started in there, courtesy of an injury. So Zach Thompson started the season in the rotation, and he has not looked great, but his velocity has been way, way down. I don't know if you've noticed that or not.
So I can't watch.
He was throwing fastballs in like the high 80s in his last start a couple of times, and so part of me wonders, is he just thinking too much and his mechanics are off? I think there's a tweak or something there that needs to be made to get him back to where he needs to be. But otherwise, I'm not worried about Zach Thompson. He's proved in last year that he can pitch at the major league level, especially out of the bullpen. And if the starting thing doesn't work out for him, we know where he's going. Lance Lynn, the guy's going to give up home runs. Let's be honest. He throws more fastballs than anybody else in the league. So, he's going to have some balls teed up. More than anything, he has had more quotable moments from his post-game interviews than anyone else so far this season.
Yeah, but like we already knew that, right? Like we knew when we signed Lance Lynn, we were going to get good quotes. I'm trying to pull up Thompson's velo here. Forcing 90.4. Oh God, yeah, he's down 4 or 5 from 22 and 23. Like that's now that could be it, because he's always been a guy who's been like a fringe rotation to bullpen type of use.
He was almost primarily in the rotation last year because he was in the bullpen the first like month, and then we sent him down because we needed starters. When he came back up, he was in the bullpen or in the rotation essentially the rest of the year, and was fairly effective in that role.
Yeah. So I mean, he pitched 66 innings last year. This year's already up to 10. Well, I'm looking at his stats there. But what I was getting at is like, obviously pitching out of the pen versus pitching in the rotation is a different scenario, right? But what's his slider? All of his pitches are down. Everything is slower.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is slower, which he's only 26. That should not be happening. That's a mechanics issue that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. And it's hard to address now that the season's rolling. So I have some concern there. But one thing I will say with Lance Lynn is, he had that rough start against the Dodgers and then dialed it in and he led us to the one win we did have in that series. Kyle Gibson, he dazzled in that first start, looked really good. And if he can give me 15 of those starts and gives me 15 starts where he gets absolutely teed off on, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'd agree with that. I'm trying to pull up here. Gibby had a good game. I'm not concerned
pitched really
about
well
Lance. Matt's game, because he got game. Didn't he get the win against the Dodgers? Wasn't that Matt?
No, he got the game that we blew
against the Padres.
Matt's got the game that we blew.
Right, the game that we blew with the bullpen.
Gibson got the first game against the Padres where he went 7 innings, pitched beautifully.
Right, because that game for Matt's, like, that's who we've thought we've had the last few years. And if he's going to go out and play decent like that, like, I'm okay with that version of Steven Matz. Like, that's what we've been missing out of him. And if that's who he's going to be this year, and granted, it's been one game, like, let's chill. You don't really know what you have yet in anyone. But, the first thing for Steven Matz is he's got to stay healthy. If he stays healthy and it doesn't get injured, he's going to be fine. But as soon as he gets any sort of nick, any sort of bruise, any sort of injury, like, he really struggles to recover from that, I think. But a lot of our complaints about the moves that the Cardinals have or have not made, like, if they are more confident in Matz than we are, like, that would explain some of the choices that have been made by the organization in this offseason. I don't know. Is there anyone in the rotation, like, other than Thompson so far that, like, you're concerned about out of Lynn, Gibson, Matz, and Michaelis? Like, those are the 4 that, like, we expect to stay there.
The other 4 are giving me either what I expected or better than expected so far. Michaelis is going to either show up and pitch great or he's going to be a train wreck. Lance Lynn's going to give up home runs, but otherwise he'll pitch fine. And then really Matz has been the surprise for me as well as he's good as he's looked. Sonny Gray is also having it out a little bit with their front office right now. He does not want to. They want him to make one more rehab start, potentially in Memphis, and he says, "Let me start at the major leagues. Put me on a 70 pitch limit. I'll come out after 70, and we'll go from there." And they are disagreeing on that right now.
Well, and that's a mentality thing, right? Like Lance Lynn's the same way, right? And that's what our pitching staff has been missing. Before we say anything else, that's what our pitching staff has been missing, is that fire and that drive to compete at the highest level all the time. And I don't personally, especially like if that start is coming this weekend, like the Marlins are kind of on the ropes. Like that might be a good place to start and get like some confidence built up. Now, the
They
Marlins
have
are going
him
to win
slated for,
eventually
it would have been Tuesday for his rehab
for
start,
Tuesday. Okay.
which would
Well,
have been, I think, the Diamondbacks, if I remember correctly.
yeah, and I don't know if I want to, go against the Diamondbacks. I don't think, it's only a weekend, so we don't really know what anyone has. But the Diamondbacks, clearly were a very good team last year. So I don't know if I necessarily would want him to come back. But if he pitches on Tuesday, that's actually the Phillies, which is also a scary fucking team.
So the thought is that he makes his rehab start Tuesday, and then he's ready to come back for the weekend to make his first major league start
against the Diamondbacks. I see what you're saying. Well, what I mean is like for his rehab start, like,
yeah,
I don't know if I'd want him to play the pitch against the Phillies, like in a rehab start. Like, but do I think he would be like, I don't know, that's the 9th, right? Let's see who's projected to pitch that day for us against the Phillies. That'd be the 9th. I'm going to pull that up. You keep going.
Anyway, so I think it'll be interesting. I like Sonny Gray. I'd like to see him pitch more. I'm ready to see him pitch. We need him, but again, I also don't want him to get lit up in his first start. And again, if you go up against somebody like the Phillies on a 70 pitch limit, and you have a rough inning or two, we're going to destroy our bullpen. And I think that's where Cardinals management is like, let's pump the brakes, because we don't want to destroy our bullpen again this year like we did last year. Speaking of the bullpen's been hit and miss. I will say Liberators looked pretty decent out of the bullpen. Gallegos has also looked really good. But
want to know something interesting?
Yes.
So I think looking at it, that looks like it could be Thompson lining up on Tuesday, but ESPN does not have a projected pitcher for that game against Philadelphia. And that could be because of, Matt's, posturing and saying he wants to play.
You mean Gray, but yes.
Yeah, sorry. I was reading something about Matt's at the time. I was looking at Saturday's start when I said that. Yeah. So that's interesting. And I don't know. Do I think that Sonny Gray is going to pitch any worse in that game than Zach Thompson is? No. Like, let's be clear. No.
But Thompson might have more pitches, right? So if he has a rough inning or two, gives you a few more, might be able to get you in a couple extra innings. And I think you're less concerned about protecting Thompson's arm over the next month than you are. Like if Thompson strains something and has to sit out a little bit of time, that's much less of a blow than if Gray aggravates his hamstring.
Well, and the other thing to kind of keep in mind is the next day, Wednesday, is Lynn versus Nola, which is a game you probably think that you could squeeze out. If your offense shows up and is, fortunate. Nola's a very good pitcher. But like that's a game that you may want your bullpen available for. So you may be willing to blow that game against Wheeler on Tuesday if you think you can win that. If you think you can win Michaelis versus Turnbull, which I think we can, and then you think you might be able to squeeze out Lynn versus Nola. Like, I mean, you got to pick and choose with your relievers what days you want them to go.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. I'm intrigued to see. I think some of it's also going to depend on how the rest of this Miami series goes through the weekend. Miami's reeling right now. Have not won a game yet this season, which hurts me for Skip Schumacher because I'm a huge Skip fan.
Yeah, but it's fucking karma for them asking Michelle Ng to take a demotion for this year. That's fucking karma. Like, I love Skip. I want all the best for Skip. But as far as the organization goes, They deserve it. I don't care if granted they are playing us, so yeah, I would like this winless streak to go another 2 games, and that would be awesome. But like, I'm cool with it. They can lose 90 games this year, and I'd be okay. I'd be happy. Like, fuck you, Miami, for that. Also, for being in the same city as Messi. So.
Yeah, you do know that I'm still a Messi fan overall.
No,
right?
I know. I'm a huge Messi fan too, but like, I also I'm
now,
kind of
if you wanted, oh yeah, no, it's been so blown out of proportion. Although I needed new tennis shoes, so guess who got those sweet Messi Sambas?
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I've been looking for new shoes to wear to sport
I've
events,
had,
but that's
this is like my 6th or 7th pair of Sambas in my lifetime. They've always been a go-to shoe for me.
Only 6 or 7?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wear them till they're dead.
That's
I just blew out, like I just wore out my last 2 pair that I've had both of since like freshman year of college. So they hold up real well.
Yeah. I mean, my daughter's soccer shoes are Sambas, so like, I agree. Although she's about to outgrow them, but unrelated. I should not be shopping for shoes right now.
No, you're good. Young guys, on the other hand, let's talk a little bit about the young guys and where they've looked good, where they haven't looked good. Jordan Walker has not looked dominant at the plate, but his defense has actually really impressed me. If I know you haven't been able to watch the games, John, I need to get you my Bally Sports login. I didn't say that, if you're listening.
You would become my best friend that I do a podcast with.
But Jordan Walker's had a ridiculous diving catch the other day. He robbed a home run. I mean, he's playing really good defense out there, and he's still got a cannon on his arm, so people don't want to run on him.
Right, but I mean, like,
so defensively,
that's not a surprise to us, right? I mean, like, the first half of last year, it was getting comfortable in the position, and like, I think the second half last year, he looked a lot better. I think this is a natural progression for him that I think you and I were predicting in the fall last year when we were talking about the Cardinals, right? So like I'm not surprised by this. I'm sure you're not surprised by this. His batting has sucked, right? And I should mention, I don't watch the games because, as we just said, but I do listen to them on the radio. But like, none of his play is really that surprising to me yet. The sample size is still too small to draw anything for like batting stats at this point. But you're not wrong. I mean, his OPS is 439. Like, he's not hitting for power and he's not getting on base very much. So yeah. The thing that again, I'm not worried about his bat. I was worried about his fielding and, was he going to take that next step? And to me, it looks like he is taking that next step defensively. There was some stuff on Sunday Night Baseball where it looks like he might be pulling his front hip out when on his swing right now, like a mechanics thing in his swing, Jordan Walker, which is making it hard for him to get any stuff on the outside half of the plate, right.
which traditionally last year, I mean, he did well hitting anything over the plate and making good solid contact.
Right.
But all hitters go through, little flashes where their mechanics get a little out of whack. So my hope is that the coaching staff can catch it and correct it.
Right. That's what playing at the major league level is, right? Like, whether you're a pitcher or a batter, it's these constant little adjustments and recognition of like the small changes that have changed in your mechanics, and being able to adapt and change those things mid-season and fix them. That's what separates the truly great players from the good players, from the mediocre players to the bad players. Jordan, if he's got to still figure out how to do that. Like, he's really young, but like, I think he's going to be fine. I'm not worried about
him. Mason Wynn has been, to me, the most impressive of our young guys this spring, both defensively and offensively.
Yeah, he's turned some really good plays. And defensively, which we expected from him.
He's batting 350 right now.
it's a weekend. You can't take anything from it. But he has been one of our best performers offensively. You're not wrong.
I'm
but I'm
not
not taking
saying that it's
conclusions
going.
from it.
I'm not going to say this is going to carry on all season, but I think the way that he's, he looks more comfortable. He just looks a little more comfortable, which you would expect after getting some time in the big leagues last year, and then coming this year. He's also, been asked multiple times to put down some sacrifice bunts and things. Victor Scott had been in front of him, who is only batting 100. What are you making a face about?
So Mason Wynn and Ivan Herrera both have an OBP less than their batting average. And I don't know how that's possible. I'm going to have to look at how those are calculated to see what's
I wonder if
causing that.
does on base percentage take, I don't know how that works.
But like I just noticed it and I'm like, how is that?
Flies.
How is
Like,
that
or
possible?
sacrifice bunts, if sacrifice bunts hurt your on base.
Because you might be right, because sac flies don't affect batting average, but they could affect on base percentage.
Mm-hmm. And the same thing for sac bunts, because Mason Wynn has had several sac bunts to push Victor Scott into scoring position to manufacture some runs. Victor Scott has been everything I thought he would be on the base paths. When he gets on the base path, I feel like he's going to score every time. Just with his speed, he's going to either steal, they're going to bunt, they're going to do something to get him moving. My only, concern right now with him is, can he make some adjustments here to get on base more than he is?
Right.
I mean, he's hitting at 100 clip, which is not great. And so, he's also reached on a couple, he forced an error and reached and, stole a base and things. And so, he's getting on base in other ways that don't help him or, show in his average. But, to me, I think Victor Scott needs to kind of be, his average ideally needs to be in that 220 to 250 range to make his defense and speed playable. And if not, I think he's going to get sent down for sure. Mason Wynn, on the other hand, I know we were talking, 350 is a small sample size. He was a 290 hitter in minor leagues.
Well,
so
yeah, but
so
most people end up worse at MLB level than they are at AAA. Like,
at least early on, right? Like initially.
Yeah.
I'm just
until
saying,
they adapt and adjust and like get comfortable.
He's going to see some adjustments. He's going to go down, but to expect Mason Wynn to be a solid 250, 260 hitter, I think is reasonable.
Yeah, but I don't consider a 250 hitter solid. Now, if it's someone who has like real power, and don't get me wrong, Mason Wynn has some power in that bat. Like, let's be clear. But like, and I know that they say that 270 is the new 300 and whatever, but like,
see,
I don't know.
That's where
you got to have some real power to justify that.
If he's hitting, and I think he'll be better than 250, 260. I think he'll be closer to that 270, 275 mark on the
275
season.
is what I want from
the
him
way
out of his career.
His defense and the way he plays defense and the arm he has, if he's a little, and his speed on the base paths and what he brings, you can get away with a slightly worse average because of what he's giving to you defensively, assuming you're not doing that at every single position, right? Like, you can't do that across the diamond, right? You can't do that across the whole field, or you never have anybody nobody's getting on base at the same time. You're never going to put up runs. But if you have one or two guys, you can get away with that.
Yeah, sure. Again, the sample size is small, so like I'm trying not to like jump to conclusions or talk too much about it.
I'm ready to jump to all the conclusions. So
I'm not gonna ridicule you for that.
This is our chance to overreact and then talk about how we overreacted next week.
Okay, well, let's talk. If you want an overreaction, it's not on the outline, but let's talk Michael Ciani.
My overreaction is that Victor Scott II is going to get sent down. He's going to stay up and become the fourth outfielder.
That's not an overreaction. Do you know why it's not an overreaction?
Okay, so who doesn't play then out of Carlson, Edman, Newt, and
It has
Walker?
nothing to do with any of that crap. It has to crap. It has to do with the fact that if I remember right, Siani was a Rule 5 acquirement, and so to keep him, he has to stay on the 40 man. So you can't send him down, basically. I mean, you can send him down, but like based on his contract, you essentially can't send him down, or he reverts back to, I believe, the Red Sox. Siani has to stay on the roster.
You can have people in AAA still on your roster though,
right? But it not everyone has options, I guess. Too. It depends on it has to do with his specific contract and how he was acquired. So he has to stay on the roster. Period.
I need to look at that.
Yeah, look into it. I'll
here's
talk
my
to you about it later.
Here's my bigger hot take: is if he continues to play well, the way that he has, is that he works himself into an everyday outfield spot, because either Edman or Donovan are never healthy. One of the two of them is always out,
right?
Or Newt.
Well, and also like Newt is out, Carlson's out. Like, I mean, Donovan plays the infield as much as the outfield if everyone's healthy, right? But like,
and ideally, I think they want Donovan to play short and then be able to spell people or not play second.
Second, yeah,
and be able to spell people at third or wherever if he needed to. Crawford can also play third, and Donovan can play short, where you could have that kind of situation for like some off days for guys.
Right. I do think they said in spring training that their plan for Crawford is he will only play shortstop, because I remember him making a comment that he was willing to play elsewhere, and Mo or Ali or someone was basically like, yeah, that's not why we brought you in here. Like, he was explaining this in an interview that like he had expressed to them that he was willing to play anywhere, and they said, no, that's not why we're bringing you in. We're comfortable with our depth elsewhere. We really need you to mentor Mason Wynn and like get him pro ready, like to become a star. That's what we need from you. And I'm okay with that. Like, I am okay with that from Crawford, who has played okay so far, I think, defensively.
You know what you're getting with Crawford, right? You're getting a end of career previous Gold Glover who knows how to play the position. He's not going to make mistakes. He doesn't have the range he once was, and he's smart enough to know what he is in the batter's box.
Yeah. And on top of that, like, he's a veteran, right? He knows how to get through a season that is going well and that is not going well. And he knows how to, regain or to keep focus, and he knows how to play in October. Like, the Giants have, they were there, they did that, right?
Yeah, and he's going to be, again, like big point what you said, he's a mentor for Mason Wynn and somebody who's played that position in the biggest stage,
literally the highest level,
So I think that's going to be huge. Nolan Arenado got off to a slow start, but he did finally look good yesterday. I think he went 3 for 5 with a double and some RBIs. So
the thing that I want to mention about Arenado is, listening to the games, is it sounds like his defense has returned to what we expect from him compared to last year, where it was maybe a step back from what our expectations for him are. And I'm curious if that's what you've seen when you've been watching.
Yeah, his defense, and again, I haven't seen a lot of crazy plays where like he's had to make some of those, flashy plays or anything. But he's making all of the plays I expect him to make, and making them look routine. The one, like I said, the area of concern for me is his bat, and I know because he struggled with that last year. We started off struggling. He's not hit a home run since last August. And I think it was like August 12th or something was the last time he hit a home run. Yeah.
I did not know that. Like, I don't care about this year, but like not hitting a home run in the last 6 weeks of the season, for granted, that like makes sense. Like, right. Like, his numbers reflected that. We talked a lot about his performance numbers, with regards to slugging, especially. So that doesn't surprise me once I think about it. But like, when you first say it, I'm like, that's not good. right?
No, and it's not what you want from your star third baseman. So when he talks about I was down on myself, I mean he was struggling last year, and to me, the sign to me was yesterday, and he's one of those guys who, when he gets on a hot streak, he gets on a hot streak, and you literally can't get the guy out. And even though he's not, was not hitting home runs yesterday, seeing him get 3 hits in a game is a sign to me that maybe he's turning that corner. And if he can carry that momentum, forward again, it's only going to take a couple games for him to get his swagger back. It's he's a pro.
Right.
And once he gets that
like,
swagger back in the box, he's going to be swinging more confidently, and home runs, doubles, everything's going to follow.
Right. And I mean, Nolan Arenado, I mean, he's a 25 to 30-ish home run hitter a year, but where I think he really excels is I feel like he hits a lot of doubles. And I haven't looked at his career stats. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but like when I think of his power, I think of a guy who hits a lot of doubles, right? And he drives in a lot of runs from them, because if you get runners in scoring position, which is, second base and on, right? And you hit a double, they score. So like that's what we need from him. I'm more concerned right now about Goldie than I am about Nolan. How do you feel about Goldie so far?
Goldie, I feel like, is actually so far I feel like has looked composed in the box. I know the results aren't there, but he looks
he's
looks
a guy
like
who
Goldie.
doesn't get flustered, right? Like he's a guy who's just level, right?
And he started off the season hot. He cooled off a little. I'm not concerned about Goldie yet. And the other reason that, like I said, I'm not concerned about Goldie, and you just said it, is he's level-headed. He's not like Nolan Arenado. He doesn't get in his head in the same way. And so I think even if he's in a little bit of a slump, we're a week into the season, trying to draw conclusions already. And I think he's going to be fine. Goldie's going to be fine. Goldie's going to do Goldie things. Do I think he's going to have another MVP season? No, I don't. Do I think he's going to have a better season than last year? Yeah, I definitely do. I think that's where we're at.
Sure. Let me ask you 4 stat-ish questions just to see if you answer these correctly. Okay. So, who has scored the most runs for the Cardinals so far this season? And I said I'm going to ask you 4 questions. That's an estimation. It could be more, could be less.
Is it Victor? Is it Victor Scott?
He is tied for first. Who do you think is the other one?
The other one is probably either Mason Wynn or Donovan. Maybe Donovan?
Donovan. Yep, both tied at 6. Mason Wynn has only scored 2 runs, but he gets on base. He seems to be in good positions a lot.
Which is interesting on Victor Scott, because he's only got 3 hits.
Right. Speaking of hits, who do you think has the most hits on the team?
Most hits right now? Mason Wynn.
No, actually it is Nolan Arenado. Now Nolan does have the most at-bats, which helps, right? You said Mason Wynn. Mason Wynn is very close. Mason Wynn has 7. Nolan has 9. Goldie also has 7, but Donnie has 8, it turns out. Who has the most home runs?
Nobody has more than 1.
Do they?
Somebody hit a second one that I missed. Oh,
somebody has 2.
Wilson Contreras has 2.
Wilson Contreras has 2. Okay. Who is leading in total bases?
Total bases? I'm going Donnie.
Donnie, absolutely. He's a base machine, isn't he? Like, he just sneakily grinds out bases. And not the way we normally expect. Like, when I think of Donnie, I think of a guy who works counts and gets, walks. He only has 2 walks so far. He's not leading in walks. And the last question I'm going to ask, this is more of a negative question. Who is leading in strikeouts?
leading in strikeouts.
Yeah, for the batters. This is not pitchers who has the most strikeouts of those pitchers. This is batters.
Ooh, I'm gonna say Victor Scott.
No, but he is tied for second. Nolan Gorman has 14, so I'm a little concerned about that because, if you think back to 2022, Gorman played like the second half. One of the things you and I talked a lot about, this is pre-podcast, of course, but like Gorman's got to get a handle on these strikeouts. And then last year, we said, wow, Gorman's not striking out. Like, that's what we need from him. And I'm a little concerned that it's coming back. But again, it's a weekend, like, can't really draw conclusions from it. Victor Scott also is second with 10. And do you know who he is tied with? This is the last question before I think
Goldie.
we move on. God damn it. Fuck off. Yes, it's Goldie. I hate when you're right. Like, I think I'm like, ha ha ha, stumped you.
I've been watching all these games, man. I've had them streaming at work. My staff have been watching with me. It's been good.
I have not been at work since the season started, but I do listen to the games at work. It is a perk of working in a hospital where we can just play the games and be like, oh, yeah, who's going to complain?
Could not do this back in the Walgreens days.
Right, exactly. Oh, God. Okay, I'm done with Cardinal stat questions for you.
Yeah, I got too many of them right.
Fuck off. I didn't even go into pitchers. They've made one start each, so you really can't draw any conclusions from the pitchers. But
I can. They're just not accurate.
They're not good takes. Yeah,
they're not statistically significant. They're not statistically significant.
That's a science phrase for all of you who work in healthcare like us.
St. Louis City. Last two games have been
puke.
Not fun to watch.
Puke emoji for like a month. Like, it's just been nonstop puke emoji.
Leuven being out for these last few games has been tough. I mean, let's put it out there for what it is, right? When you lose a stabilizing force in your center midfield like that for an extended stretch, that's tough to overcome.
Well, and it's not just that, but like Leuven slows one of the things I like about Leuven is that he simultaneously slows the game down. He changes the pace of the game. Let's say it that way. He will slow it down and then trigger a fast release, right? Like, you see him on the ball and it's like it's like the game slows down, and it may only be a second and a half, but it feels like it's 4, 5, 6 seconds while he surveys the field, and then he makes the perfect through pass, and suddenly we're flying again, right? That's a thing we've been missing. That being said, like we've been advancing the ball on the wings through Totland and through Celio, and I've not been upset about watching them. I think they've done very good in carrying the ball, in making the right passes. And they play on opposite sides, so like that's who they're going through, even though they're not the same position. I've been happy with Ostrak playing as the 8. I had really mixed feelings about Durkin and Blanc together. I thought it worked really well for 70 minutes until suddenly everything on the whole team fucking went wrong. But I don't feel like we advanced the ball very well. So I don't know. It did not feel good against RSL.
The moment that things kind of unraveled for us was after the subs.
Yeah, one sub in particular, right? Totland, right. And like, don't get me wrong, Totland is like a guy who has played every minute for the team until that sub in MLS play, every minute for the team in MLS play. I know I messaged you this the next day. Every single time we put Hebert at right back, and I am the biggest Hebert fan that's out there.
I know
right?
you are.
Right.
Because I come after Hebert regularly when they put him in, and I've said this before.
He's not a fullback.
It's not his fault. He's a center back, and they keep putting him on the right and left sides. But if you're put in those positions, it's still your fault when stuff you're still the one liable.
I should mention, so the third goal to complete the hat trick to, bury us against RSL, that's a play Hebert should have made. Him being a fullback or a center back in that situation does not change the fact that he should have made that play. It's just when he plays right back, especially, really bad things happen. Really bad things happen when we play him at right back. And I'm just superstitious. And I just am like, you know what? No more right back for Hebert.
What puzzled me is why not bring in Nerwinski if you need a right back? And I'm not trying,
but
I'm playing devil's advocate,
right?
Because they need to get Hebert minutes.
They need to get Hebert minutes. They're trying to reward him for being the good soldier, and he doesn't complain. He comes in, he works hard every day, and he's they're trying to give him opportunities to play that he is deserving of. But like, you're not taking out Parker, and Yarrow has not played. Like Yarrow was arguably our best player on the back line that game. Like, you're not taking him out.
He was arguably our best player on the team that night.
Yeah, I'm as soon as we get off of this, I'm going to look at FOTMob and see what the ratings are. And I know it's not really accurate, but like, I mean, I would have rated Yarrow the highest. Like, he was exceptionally good, even for him, that game. And if you're like telling Hebert, like, yeah, we're going to play you this game, like, you can't take out Parker and Yarrow after the way they were playing in the first 60 or 70 minutes. But the problem is, and you talked about this last year to no end, when Hebert gets the ball, he's confused. And even if he's going to be our starting center back after Nielsen and Parker and Yarrow retire, who are all 3 to 5 years older than him, he has to be semi-comfortable on the ball. He has to be able to distribute. He has to be able to pass forward. Like, you're not just the guy that's, making these excellent tackles on the run and shoving people off the ball, which is something that I think Hebert can do very well. You also have to make the pass forward. And granted, very limited sample size. We're talking about 25 minutes out of position. I did not see him doing that on the right back. And he's right-footed. He should be able to bring the ball forward and deliver a decent cross up. Like, you're fucking playing in MLS. Like, you should be able to do that.
I just looked at FOTMob. Do you want to guess who the highest rated player? It was not Yarrow. Yarrow was second highest on our team.
I mean, Indy scored a goal, so like, it would make sense if it's Indy. Yeah.
And Indy actually had a great game until he was
Indy had a
off.
great game. Yeah, I'm not upset about that.
Indy's been playing great all season. But do you know who the lowest rated player on our team was?
I mean, watching it, I felt like it was Marcanic, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's not Marcanic.
It's not Marcanic.
Is it Klaus?
It was a sub.
It was a sub. Oh, okay. To be fair to the subs, though, like, they don't get a lot of time. It was Hebert. It was Hebert. The one thing I will say about the subs is, like, you don't get any time to recover your rating, right? Like, but Hebert did play not excellent that game, because
not great.
Right. Like, and especially the third, like, that one goal, like, if he makes the tackle when he goes in on it, like, it ends the play, first off. And then second, you could make the case that he was out of position even going for that tackle, and that he should have been covering Chicho Arango for the goal instead. So, like, and as far as the rest of that RSL game goes, like, okay, the first goal, like, okay, that's a banger. Like, there's literally nothing you can do. Berkey's being screened. He can't really see it. It's a well-placed shot from outside the box. There's not a lot that you can do about that. The pen, fucking shit happens. We're all tired of these fucking handball calls. I still have PTSD from last season. I'm not going to talk more about it because we talked enough. Like, his body is bigger than it should be because of it. There's nothing he could have done to prevent it. Like, I get why they called it. I still think it's bullshit, but I get why they called it. But that third goal, like, just fuck.
Yeah. The DC game, we have not talked about either. I thought we looked better as a whole in that DC game, but it was a lot of what I expected from DC, and that they're a little, they're like, they want to play the press like we do, but they're a lot more willing to waste time and do things. And again,
Right.
they were trying to get a point on the road.
I took real offense to them saying that, like, and granted, like, if you look on Reddit, you'll see comments everywhere that, like, St. Louis was wasting time against RSL. I really don't think we were wasting time against RSL. Like, we slowly went to the corner, but, like, we got to the corner, we took the kick. It was nowhere near, like, what DC was doing.
Correct.
Right?
There's a difference in, like, slowly jogging or walking over to, like, take a corner kick and rolling around on the ground for 5 minutes.
Exactly. And so, like, during the DC game, I took real offense to them saying,
part of
like,
that is
St. Louis would have
sportsmanship.
done it too. Fuck off.
One of them is gamesmanship, and one of them is being a douchebag. And DC was being a bunch of douchebags.
Yeah, I 100% agree. What I liked about DC is I felt like we looked comfortable on the ball, even without Leuven, who, like, when Leuven's on the field, our possession flows through Leuven. I really liked that. I think DC won the battle of wills in the fact that, you know, when you have two teams that are playing the same style, or, and maybe let me rephrase that. When you have two teams that either both do want the ball or both do not want the ball, one team inevitably wins every time. And DC won that. DC played substantially less with the ball. But I think we were okay with that. And I wasn't unhappy with that. And if you compare that to RSL, right, we kept giving the ball back to RSL. And for 70 minutes or so, it worked. But, like, there was no drive to get a second goal, right? If you think about last year.
I was furious during the RSL game, because there looked like there was no hunger to go get a second goal out of our team.
Right. And if you compare this season to last season, right, if we'd have scored a goal 3 minutes in last season, we were going for their fucking throats.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We were thinking we could put up 4 in this game. Like, and that's what I thought. When we scored that goal, I was like, oh, game on. Like, this is going to be killer. And then we just, like, set back and let them advance the ball. And our only against the ball play was fouling them in our half of the field, right? Like, and giving them dangerous free kicks. And, like, and it's not all Durkin. I do think a lot of the fouls probably were Durkin. And I'm not going to, like, hate on him. Like, my question is, okay, for the forward midfielders and the forwards, like, what the fuck are you doing in the press right now?
The only, I felt like there was good looks at moments of the press. You know, Indy presses really, really well on the right. Celio presses really, really well on the left.
Yeah.
AZ is you never know what you're going to get out of him at any given moment. Klaus, I felt like pressed okay. And I don't want to harp on Klaus too much, because, I mean, there was times when, you know, when they had a breakaway, who was the first person back to stop their breakaway? It was Klaus out of nowhere. So, like,
and that happened the first time we played RSL as well. Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm just, you know, throwing that out there. It's Klaus is he busts his ass. I mean, sucks that he shanked his break, you know, streaking down the field shot 20 rows deep into the stands. But I mean,
I'm a little concerned about Klaus missing these shots.
Oh no, I am too. But but as far as pressing is concerned, I'm not concerned about his ability to press.
Yeah, I'm not.
I am concerned about his touch in and around the 18.
Right. Any press you get from your striker is a good press, right? Like, most teams have a striker who's just kind of like whatever. But, like, when you see your striker tracking back and making slide tackles, you know, on a winger in your defensive third, like, that makes you happy. I mean, it makes you really pissed, like, where the fuck is my fullback? But at the same time, you're like, look at my
it's
DP
usually after a
going
corner or, you know, something like that too. But it's I agree. There's a lot of concern there. I don't know. I feel really good about a group of our players, but something that I really liked about the DC game that I didn't see in the RSL game, and you already touched on it, was our ability to play with the ball. It's something we've talked about being able to do. And if we can play with the ball a little bit more in that RSL game, maybe we're not as gassed in those last 20 minutes because we weren't chasing the game the whole time.
Right. You're not, running after their players, trying to steal it back, right? And not only that, but when you play a possession style, like the clock naturally runs down. The game is naturally slower when you have two possession teams playing. And like, I don't think, like, when we talk about like trying to kill the clock and trying to work the game down, like one of the ways you do that is through good, careful possession, trying to work the ball upfields and get it into a corner. So that way you can kick it off of a defender's leg and then take another set piece, right? Like that's one of the ways you can do that, is work it slowly upfield and then get those set pieces. And we just had none of that game, and it was just really, really frustrating. And don't get me wrong, like I get that RSL is going to want the ball, right, when they're behind. Like that's a natural game state. But then, like when we got the ball, we just gave it back. And I don't think our press was that terribly great. It was very low compared to what we expect from St. Louis City. The line was not drawn in RSL's defensive half or in RSL's defensive third. It was drawn more in our half or in our defensive third. And you can't have that to play the way we do. I don't know. I just did not feel good watching it. And, you can make the case that we've been playing as a mid-table team this year. We've come from behind, but we've almost always conceded first, right? I think RSL is probably the one game that we did score first. And of course, it's the game that we end up losing, right?
NYCFC, we were both there.
Yeah. Great fucking game. But like, other than
it's
NYCFC,
a bottom of the table team.
Right, exactly. And don't get me wrong, I think RSL is good enough to compete for a home playoff spot, right? Like I'm not, if you were just be like, hey, you're going to draw at home against RSL and then lose at RSL, like just like if you were just going to tell me those results, I would have said, that RSL is a team that can be very scary. But like we should have demolished Austin, right? We were the better team against Austin. I think we were lucky to escape with a draw against LA. But you could also say like, hey, you took the lead late. Like you should have fucking closed that out, right? Should have closed that out. Who do we play after LA? DC? DC. You should have fucking buried DC, right? Like, let's be clear about that. It's a home game. Like you drew at home. That's not acceptable. You need to be winning at home. And Dallas, like who the fuck knows what's going to happen this weekend against Dallas. Like weird shit always happens when we play Dallas.
Yeah, no telling what's going to happen tomorrow night. And I'm honestly, I'm excited for the game, but I'm nervous about the game. If my wife wasn't out of town, and then with me flying actually to Dallas, oddly enough, on Sunday, I would have been at the game tomorrow. I mean, there's tickets galore available right now because all four teams are at home tomorrow.
I know. The reason I have not bought tickets to tomorrow is because we have tickets to the Zoo Lights with my whole family. The Chinese New Year, whatever it's called, but it's essentially Zoo Lights. And like I'm like, dang it, like tickets are cheap for this one, but
I know.
Whatever.
Yeah. But maybe tomorrow will be a better than last Saturday was.
It's a home game. Like we got to get back to winning.
They're all home. They're all home tomorrow.
Well, yeah, I know that.
Downtown is going to be packed.
Oh, you mean like just like tomorrow as a day should be better? I get what you're saying. I thought you were just meaning like with relation to city, like.
No,
like City
tomorrow
should
is a
win
day
tomorrow.
for St. Louis sports.
Like, and let's go back to like RSL and DC. Like DC especially, DC had so many people out, and I felt like we played down to their level of their backups, right? Like they had like 6, 7, 8 starters out. Like Maybe
We
not all
didn't start
starters, but
Celio that game.
yeah, I was pretty pissed about that too. We didn't talk about that on here yet, but like that was
Because
bullshit. You
we
and I
haven't
both
recorded,
said
but
that we would have started Celio over AZ
oh god, yeah.
offline.
Speaking of, that gets into my 10-second yes or no question for you.
Okay.
10-second yes or no, should AZ still be in your starting 11 right?
Formational dependent, yes, but generally it's a big eh.
Is he one of your best 11 players?
Yes, but he's in the best 11 based on formation. So let me talk about this, right? I don't think a 4-4-2 with Klaus and Sam is our best lineup. I think both are individually better in a 4-2-3-1 lineup. So that's 4 defenders, 2 defensive midfielders, 3 attacking midfielders, and 1 striker. Because, you know, we said last time you and I talked that we need to explain what we're talking about with regards to soccer a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, if we found a striker that could play with both Sam and with Klaus, that would be my preferred way. And maybe Tukert, who I expect we will get on a free because he has not signed anywhere yet and he is eligible for a pre-contract agreement now. Maybe he can do that. My thing with AZ is if we are going to do a 4-4-2, right, with Sam and Klaus starting, it is not AZ who should be starting at left mid. It is Celio. Celio is for right now with his current form written in pen. Until his form dips, he absolutely has to be starting.
And I feel the same way about Indy on the other side.
Yeah. I don't think Alm has done enough to supplant Indy, especially after that goal last week against RSL. I do think we are probably better with Alm, but until Indy, until Alm or Indy, until one of them plays really, really well or really, really bad, I don't see a reason to change. And I also want to protect Alm too. Like, I don't want Alm to tear that muscle again.
I think long term, what I think makes the most sense is that same formation, that 4-2-3-1, with either Blom or Durkin playing back in a double pivot with Leuven. Leuven really seems to be comfortable back there and playing box to box. And I think Indy in that central midfield, and you throw Alm on the right and Celio on the left.
So let me ask you this question. Here's a thought I have, right? Because I think seeing all 3 of them on the pitch at the same time happens when AZ hopefully moves on to Europe. And that's hopefully for him. That's hopefully for our financial situation. That's, what's in theory going to happen. What if we have this all wrong? What if it's not Leuven who moves up to the attacking central midfield?
Well, that's what I just said.
No, you said put Leuven at the 10, right?
No, I said put Indy at the 10.
Okay. Sure. Okay. Oh, I see. Celio, Indy, Alm.
Yeah.
I like that. I do like that. Here's an alternative thought that was not where my brain was going. What if, to get Leuven, Blom, and Durkin on the field at the same time, Leuven says, look, I'm way more comfortable as an 8. Blom is absolutely going to be a 6, a just straight defensive midfielder, go in, make the nasty slide tackles, push people off the ball, do his thing. And then you say, hey, Durkin, what if you want to play, sideline to sideline, but just play like 15 yards forward, right? Win the ball back and then just feed it to Klaus. That's all you got to do. Like, I'm suddenly like, okay. Like, could you imagine Durkin going for some of these balls that he goes for, but going for them in the opponent's box?
Yeah, I mean, like, in theory,
how many yellow
right? The part that you're saying sounds great. My issue is you have people like Indy, you have people like Ostrak who fit the creativity part when we're pushing forward better. The other thing that I could really see doing is going back to a 4-4-2 with Indy out wide on the right, Celio on the left. You put Blom/Durkin and Leuven in the middle, But up top, run either Klaus or Big Sam alongside Alm.
I like as a striker, and I like him particularly with Sam. And do you know why I like him particularly with Sam? I'll give you a chance to say it.
The speed between the two of them?
Well, yeah, the speed, but it's not just the speed. It's the fact that um they occupy similar space, but they do it on opposite sides of the field. And so I think you can play the same way on the left or the right and just granted, it's the ugliest form of soccer, sure, right? To play physical against the ball and then just look for a through ball counter. But it can be effective. And I think, if you have both of them, you've got Sam running to the left, you've got Alm running to the right, and whoever looks like they have the best space available, that's where you send the ball. And I don't care if it looks pretty. I care if we win, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of synergy with the way they play. I like Celio with Klaus because Celio's going to try to dribble at people in the box. He's going to draw people to him. I think he is going to make runs while Klaus holds up play. I think that synergistically, I just see their styles and I think they work better together. Whereas I see Alm and Sam working very well together. I will say
I
this,
don't,
and maybe
I don't like Celio as a striker though. But the
really,
other nice thing there, I like him better as that left mid where he can go at people further back, where he's got more freedom to drop further back.
see, I really want Celio central. And granted, we haven't seen him as like a central attacking midfielder yet, but I know when we watched the Open Cup game last year, he played as a striker, as an underneath striker, typically, I believe, in that game. Um, I want him in the center because I don't want the sideline to be restricting him, but I think he does a really good job of drawing corners by taking it up to the baseline and then kicking it off people. And if they don't come with him, he dribbles in.
He's really good at using the sideline to his advantage to beat people off the dribble. And that's part of the reason I like him on that side. Tottenham's also really good at that. And if you have Indy on the right, who Indy loves to invert off that right side, that's perfect to play with Totland on the right side.
Right.
You leave Celio on the left where he likes to play on that stuff. He can invert. And again, you've got Big Sam or Klaus alongside Alm up top, I think could be good. Again, Alm's not ready to play and to start yet, but as the season goes on, I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll also be interesting as we get a better feel for Dewar and how he plays, if and when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this, right? So, like the first half last week, I felt like Marcanic was a bit of a liability. I think he kind of shut it down in the second half. Like, he did not stand out in any way in the second half last game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do not think he played a great first half. Who do you start tomorrow?
If I'm the one managing, I want to see more minutes out of Dewar. I want to see where he's at. So I start Dewar, and if he's struggling, I have Marcanic at the 60th minute. But you need to know what you have.
Right. I would agree with that.
And we just haven't seen enough minutes with it. Now, what will Carnell do? Who the hell knows?
Yeah. Would you start Blom or Ostruck tomorrow?
Okay, well, it depends on the overall. I assume so. Alm's not ready to start.
No.
Blom apparently is ready to start. Durkin's ready to start. I would run out probably a 4-2-3-1 again. My two in the back would be Durkin and Blom and give them another chance to. Again, they're still learning how to play with each other. But I would start Ostrak over AZ in the middle, and I'd put Selly on the left and Indy on the right.
I don't like Ostrak in that spot as much myself. My thing about AZ is I think he presses very well, which a guy with his speed should be able to press pretty well, right?
So does Ostrak.
Yeah, but give me a moment. My concern with AZ is when he gets on the ball, and when Ostrak plays advanced like that, I think he makes a lot of the same mistakes that I feel like AZ makes. I like Ostrak deeper in the midfield and being able to play with that space. The only times I've been concerned with Ostrak at the 8, which is your box-to-box midfielder, has been really kind of when AZ early in the season was occupying the same space as Ostrak for some God knows reason. I like Ostrak deeper. Now, I could make the case tomorrow that Blom plays over Durkin, and not because of ability, but just because Durkin has played like a lot this season. And like at some point we have to manage his minutes, right? I also I mean I could see a Blom Ostrak midfield tomorrow, and I'd be like, okay. Tonight, actually, by the time this publishes, tonight or previously, depending on when you listen to it, I guess. But I think it's going to be Pompeu, Jackson, Vasilev for your attacking midfield. And depending on if you go Klaus or Sam, one of them drops out. And apparently the one that drops out is Celio, which is stupid.
I've not been sold on AZ, and AZ's had a lot of minutes this season already. And I think AZ's a great player and he's got a lot of potential. I don't think he's playing up to that potential right now. And again, I agree he presses well, but I mean, I think back to Ostrak pressing. I mean, Ostrak had that beautiful goal from pressing the hell out of LA.
Ricky Pooch,
so,
actually. I have to call out that it's Ricky Pooch because I really don't like that guy.
That's fair. And so, so that's, to me, I think Ostrak, at least this season, when he's been in the attacking third, has looked more composed than AZ. And to me, that's why I put him there. Now, if you go back to last season, I agree. They make a lot of the same mistakes. But this season, when Ostrak's been in the attacking third, he has looked much more composed and like a player who knows what he's doing.
Right.
And AZ has looked less polished. And so I feel more comfortable with Ostrak in that role.
Another thing I want to mention about Ostrak is that his contribution, so to say, this year, he has not advanced the ball. He's not made, progressive carries or progressive passes, which is kind of what we would have expected from Leuven, who he has replaced, right? But what he has done really well is he has most of the games he's played, I think he's led in recoveries for loose balls. And so I think if he's playing farther forward and in between two wider midfielders, I don't think he's going to have the opportunity to do that as much. And I'm all for someone who's willing to chase a ball down and beat someone out for it and bring it back and then recycle play. That's just a thought that I wanted to mention while we were talking about Ostrak. Do you start Klaus or Sam tomorrow?
I start Sam.
I probably do too. But he hasn't scored lately. He scored early. He has not scored lately.
But he hasn't. But Klaus has been starting.
Yeah, but Sam has had some starts. Didn't he start against DC? Didn't we go 4-4-2 against DC? Which you could say like him formation. And Klaus don't play together. Like
yeah. But to me, I don't know. Neither one has looked great in the box, if you want my honest opinion.
Not the past few
games. Neither one of their finishing touches. Even outside of Big Sam's goals, I have not seen. He's had a lot of just shanks as well. That it gets overshadowed because he's had a couple more opportunities. He puts one in the back of the net. But I mean, Klaus had one chance against RSL. So yeah, it's going to keep. That's what everyone's going to stand in their minds. That one chance.
Right.
If he had 3 or 4 or 5 chances, okay, maybe he puts one in the net, and that's what people focus on.
Right. Now, here's a thought that I would have, and I know we need to probably wrap up, but like when it comes to the sub strategy, which is something that you and I have harped on a lot, and I know Coach uses like the most subs out of MLS, but like I think Alm is probably ready to go a half, right? Probably ready to go 45 minutes at this point. easily.
Mm-hmm.
Probably could go 60, honestly, but 45 minutes definitely should be doable for him. I probably tell Indy, like, hey, you got 45 minutes and we're going to bring Alm on in the second half, like automatically, like just go to town. And then, now hear me out. And then in the 60th, if you start Klaus, you swap him out for a dinner. Like against RSL, we didn't sub Klaus out until the 77th minute. That's too late. Like that sub needs to be happening earlier. If he's not scoring and he's not finding the ball, that has to happen earlier.
Here's a fun thought, and I think we might have tried this once this year. All right, leave the 4 defenders, 2 defensive midfielders, 3 attacking, 1 striker, the 4-2-3-1.
Okay.
Let Blom and Ostrak be your defensive midfielders. Give Durkin a little bit of time off so he doesn't get destroyed this year. Leave Celio on the left, Indy on the right. Put Big Sam as your striker. Put Klaus at the 10.
I mean, that's how they play when they play the 4-4-2, right? Klaus comes in and plays underneath. It ends up like a 4-4-1-1.
But flat out tell Klaus you're the 10, right? Put him in that role. And don't even...
Sam does not take the space that Klaus needs him to take, though, right? When Klaus and Nico were effective, it was because Klaus was holding a play and then Nico was running past him because, Klaus is the big target guy, right? And Nico's playing underneath him, and then Nico runs past, and then he passes it forward to Nico, right? I don't think that works as well with Klaus and Sam because Sam doesn't take the space that Nico takes, and when Klaus is already underneath of Sam, it's hard to find Sam for him the way Klaus plays. I'm not as big of a fan of that.
I'm thinking more of Klaus playing off of Indy and Celio making those runs past him.
Sure, if you tell them to invert more, I'm okay with that.
So, like, you have Sam as your striker, right up top. Right. He's going to keep the defense honest, and you have Indy and maybe create Celio, space. Yeah, create space for Indy and Celio to run in underneath, where Klaus can hold up play and then hit those guys.
Right, you've got Klaus holding up play in like the central attacking third, roughly, and then you've got Celio and Indy running into the channel. Yeah. And then anything after that is whoever has an opportunity for a shot, they take it, basically. Like, yeah.
I'm not saying it would work, but
kind of like it.
In a random throwing out theories and thoughts, that's one that I've thought of. So
I don't dislike that. I also, and we haven't seen enough from Dewar to know if he's an offensive minded fullback or if he's a defensive minded fullback. But I think your and I's expectation was that he was going to be a lot like Totland, but on the left, right? And if he is a lot like Totland on the left, my question soon becomes like, should we go back to 3 center backs? And I mean, our guys last year, when you look at Watts and Nelson, like, are probably even more reliant on that type of formation, playing more as a wing back than a fullback, which is basically the same position, just farther upfield as a baseline. But like when you watch them, like that's basically what they play already. It's like we hang our center backs out to dry, essentially.
Yeah, the way the way Yarrow's been playing. And I know you love Hebert, but a Yarrow, Parker, Nielsen, when Nielsen gets back from his broken ribs, that's a solid back 3,
right?
Especially with Yarrow's speed.
Yeah,
there's nobody in MLS who's going to outrun Yarrow.
Right. Well, and I'm even okay with Yarrow, Parker, Hebert right now. Right? You put Hebert at left center back. You put Parker in the center, and you put Yarrow at right. And Parker kind of has freedom to go to either side. He gets to play a little bit more forward, bring the ball up, and distribute. Like I'm okay with that. And like you give that ball to Totland, like good things happen, right? Like we get into good spots.
My concern is you're bringing on another center back and you're taking off. We have a lot of, I feel like pretty good midfielders. Do you decrease some of your potential offensive ability there?
I mean, I think you and I know who we take off in this situation, who we take off, not who coach takes off, but who you and I would take off. And it would be AZ, right? Like it'd be like essentially a Christmas tree formation, right? It'd be, the 3 center backs, it'd be the 2 fullbacks who we just mentioned, and then plus say Leuven and Durkin in a best case scenario. and then you'd have Celio and Indy or and then you'd have whichever striker you're playing that day because of form, right? Like, I think that could play very well for us, because you can get a lot of numbers forward in attack, and you can also get a lot of numbers back in defense. And like, let's face it, like, we are scoring goals, but most of them are off of set pieces. They're not in open play, and we are allowing a lot of transition goals in addition to a lot of set piece goals. Like, we need more big bodies defending right now.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
No, there was, so I was listening to ESPN the radio, and I think I don't remember if it was the morning drive or if it was the fast lane. But they were talking about, I want to say it was the fast lane, but they were talking about when is it too much in the stance, right? They were talking about when you've got people in the background saying, F this and F that. And one of the people who texted into the show was like, yeah, I had some people around me talking about like cheating on their wives and whatever else. And it's like, my kids are sitting right in front of you, and like, this is inappropriate and blah, blah, blah. And then somebody else texted in kind of in response to the conversation. It was like, look, I agree, man. Like, you need to know your audience. You need to know who you're around. Like, make sure you're careful. Granted, this is coming from somebody who's going to be saying fuck Stan Kroenke a whole lot this weekend, and probably encouraging my kids to do the same. But I mean, that guy had it coming. And I couldn't help but laughing as I was driving. Yeah. Because if there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that we all hate Stan Kroenke. And with that, everyone, we'll tell you guys good night.